former flat earthers, what made you come round? I was debating a flat earther in Mexico, and I asked him about how GPS worked if there were no satellites. He said that they had devices in the ground to route you. I told him the Mexican government is barely able to put decent water pipes in the ground. Would he really think they had the tech to put routing devices in the ground? He chuckled with a 1,000-mile gaze. I convinced a flat earther, temporarily, by asking him if it was possible for a sphere to be so large that you could not tell it was a sphere by simply being on the surface of it. It took him a while. I used an analogy of an extremely long line that was so slightly curved you could not tell so by looking at a small section of it. Eventually he said yes to the sphere, and I told him that was how big the Earth is. A few days later he reverted. Most of these people aren't mentally stable. They believe in a lot of conspiracies. If someone starts as a round earther and then converts to being a flat earther and then goes back to being a round earther, would you say they've come full circle? Once they've realized their mistake, I'd say they're really on the ball. Quote I got from somewhere. For 5 years I believed the earth was flat, then I turned 6. Not me, but got a flat earther to question his beliefs, and hopefully critically analyze them, by giving him the proof he asked for, to which he responded, mainstream science and media are lies. I asked why he asked for proof if he could just disregard it as lies either way, then told him that since he required no proof, or evidence against, to believe something, it made him the easiest person to deceive and that it seemed pretty sheep-like to me. He deleted all of his flat earth comments, and hasn't posted about it since. He probably didn't change his opinion, but he did become ashamed of it, which is a good start. I was tired of living life on the edge. The inclined seat conformed perfectly to his body, strategically placed in the cockpit so he could reach no buttons with outstretched arms. The straps anchored him firmly in place. They were uncomfortable but necessary. The engine burst to life with a roar that burned out all the other audio. The vibrations tore through his body, and he felt his body sink back into the seat as the G-force began to take hold. The captain was watching the readouts on the LED displays and monitoring their trajectory. As the acceleration began to peel his thoughts away, there was no more room in his brain. It had been filled by pure fear. The boosters grew with greater ferocity as they lifted higher into the sky, the sun beaming down on the left side of the shuttle. But faster they went. Through max Q and higher into the stratosphere until the engines grew quieter, the air more silent, and the vibrations became less violent. They were approaching space, the final frontier. An hour later, and with the path of the shuttle a success, he noticed as his raw emotions withdrew that his body felt funny. Head hair drifted aimlessly across his eyes as the captain's pen hovered in midair, and he knew the impossible was true. His childhood dream, he was in space. Weightless. The captain turned around to him, and motioned him to unhook his seatbelts. He did as he was commanded. They both left their chairs and glided over to the tiny glass windows to overlook the magnificence of Earth. "What do you think now?" said the captain. He recoiled in horror. It couldn't be. NASA had replaced the windows with high-definition screens in order to perpetrate their lies that the world was spherical. Those bastards. Okay, I get the question is funny and all, but I actually did believe, for a time, that the Earth was flat. I was raised in a very religious family, and basically came to the conclusion that the Bible declared the Earth was flat, because since I believe the Earth was created in 7 days, the idea that God set the stars in the sky in 1 day made much more sense if the stars were simply points of light in a sort of snow globe formation extrapolated onto a bigger scale. Otherwise, he took 1 day out of the 7 to make a septillion or so balls of flaming gas, all with their own planets, and set each one into galaxies before breaking for lunch. It just didn't make sense to me that he would spend 5 days on one planet, and make the creation of the trillions of other stuff in the universe a little footnote. I was confronted about this belief a couple times, only one of which wasn't laughed off. That single person who engaged started a serious discussion, presenting much more evidence for the globe Earth, and eventually told me to watch Carl Sagan. The Cosmos series was on YouTube, and once I watched it, I had to know more. Finally, a video from the channel Minute Physics convinced me, in no uncertain terms, that the Earth was round. All it took was one quote, which I still remember leaving chills down my spine. "You should have put a serious tag on this question." I watched a documentary about flat earthers called Truth Behind the Curve, and my analysis from watching that these flat earthers are a group of people who found a community to be a part of. It's a shame their community is based on a lie, but I saw a bunch of people who were to be part of a community. Most of the people were social, awkward, and whatnot, and so an opportunity to be an influential figure within the community, so they doubled down on their flawed logic. The more against you are of them, the harder they rep their flatness. They actually did an experiment, and that if they got one result, the Earth was flat, if they got the other, it was round. Experiment showed that the Earth is, drum roll, round. They claimed it was human error that caused the wrong result. I spent about a year infiltrating the flat Earth community on Instagram. I garnered a decent following with an account dedicated to flat Earth travel photos, an intentionally absurd premise. In that time I learned quite a bit about the community, including how to discern the trolls from the real deal. The majority of legit flat earthers are extremely distrustful of anything the government says or does. These same people are 9/11 truthers, Holocaust deniers, and anti-vaxxers, and they connect these conspiracies together. Many of them have also attached flat earth theory to religion, magic, or mysticism. Before my infiltration, I'd always considered conspiracies fun, like they were the fan fiction of real life. Now they mostly make me sad. For all the phony accounts like mine, there are still plenty of people out there willing to drop a couple of $100 on a flat earth convention. It took about 5 years. It was a lot of willful ignorance on my part. I just refused to question the logic of it. In fact, I spent most of my time coming up with crazy fantasies about a lot of things I didn't understand. But you have to understand that there is just so much we don't know about that sometimes our priority on what is real and what can be believed can get confused. I was learning so much so fast that I really didn't question something so inane as the world being flat. Of course it was, why wouldn't it be? The day that changed it forever though was when I asked my father what happens when you get to the edge of the world. He of course said the world is round like a ball. Being about 5 years old, I thought that made a lot of sense. Did any of you former flat earthers just believed because you wanted to be unique and different from everyone else? I suspect that some people who deny shit like this are the same people who just wants to be different. They'll say they disliked a movie because the majority likes it. They'll say they don't enjoy a type of food cause most do. Basically, they don't really care how they truly feel about something. They just want to be different and say the opposite of the majority. Maybe not with everything, but they'll choose a few things in life because they want to feel special. It's because most conspiracy theories, even the really complex ones, are about solving their deep-seated sense that something is wrong with the world, rather than looking at how things are structured economically and socially, because that is infinitely more complex than even the most insane conspiracy theories. They simply reduce the world to good guys and bad guys and sheep. It's comforting for many to think that the world is no more complex than a long-running TV show. Having a big, evil, scary thing with a face is less terrifying than infinite chaos with really no one in charge of it all. That's also partly why religion plays so much of a factor into many conspiracies. I once had a conversation with a professional UFC fighter and outspoken flat earther. I tried to explain how Archimedes was able to prove the Earth was round just by using his shadow. I mentioned air travel and how Hawaii and Japan are not 20+ hours of flying apart. But what I think got through to him the most was seasons. This particular guy was Brazilian. I explained that because the Earth is round, it's possible to be winter in Brazil and summer in the USA and vice versa. He nodded and stared off into the distance silently, and the conversation was over. I don't think I converted him, but it gave him significant pause at the very least. So, is the Earth flat or round? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.